There are 63 national parks located across the United States of America, and of those, Florida is home to 3 of them. This puts them in 5th place for states with the most national parks, just behind California with 9, Alaska with 8, Utah with 5, and Colorado with 4, tied with Washington State and Arizona as well. You'll find that the states with the most national parks are typically diverse and protect a variety of natural resources, but Florida is a bit of an exception. By no means are any of their 3 parks completely alike, but the state in general is extremely flat with not a lot of variety in their landscapes. As a result, all of these parks are quite unique and focus on things that most national parks don't. I was fortunate enough to visit all 3 Florida parks with my mom earlier this year, and we enjoyed each of them very much. But today I wanted to take this time to thoroughly review them and in the process rank them from worst to best. So hopefully this video helps you decide which of these parks you should prioritize, but honestly, if you have the time, I would recommend visiting them all. Let's kick things off with the least memorable national park in Florida, and that's number 3, Biscayne National Park. Located 45 minutes south of Miami, Biscayne National Park is unique in that 95% of the park is situated underwater. It protects 4 primary ecosystems, with the most prominent being the northernmost portion of the Florida Reef System, which is the 3rd largest coral reef in the world. This makes the park a haven for all sorts of sea life. It's also home to the northernmost Florida Keys, all of which are uninhabited, the southern expanse of Biscayne Bay, and a fringe of mangrove forest along the mainland shoreline. Assuming you want to get under the water like we did, the best way to experience Biscayne National Park is by booking a snorkel tour. We did the small group snorkel experience offered by the Biscayne National Park Institute, which lasted 3.5 hours and cost us $122 a person. The tour guides are very knowledgeable about the park and will take you to whatever spots are best for visibility that day. We got to check out 2 separate spots for snorkeling, where we saw tons of amazing fish, and circled around Boca Chica Key to get a look at the park's most iconic lighthouse. My favorite settings were Barracuda, which I know have a reputation for being aggressive, but they honestly seem much more afraid of you than you are of them. Also, we got to see this moray eel hiding behind the rocks, which was very cool. Overall, I enjoyed Biscayne National Park a lot despite my relatively short visit. The fact that matters is the park is not really diverse compared to most national parks, meaning you'll only need a couple hours if you want to experience it. Combine that with its close proximity with Miami, and you've got perhaps the most accessible national park in Florida. The only issue is you'll have to spend some money on a tour, otherwise you won't really be able to see any of the park. And this is something you'll have to stomach regardless of what national park you visit in the state. Because of how unique each of them are, your best experiences will almost always be an upcharge, even if you have a national parks pass. But we'll talk about that more later. Number 2, Everglades National Park. Perhaps the most unique national park I've been to, the Everglades was the first to be set aside for its biodiversity. There is no other place in the world that combines a subtropical climate with so many distinct habitat types. Proof of the ecosystem's uniqueness can be seen in that the Everglades are the only place in the world where alligators and crocodiles coexist. These animals are easily the most iconic feature of this park and can be seen by doing a variety of activities, my top recommendation of which would be a classic airboat tour. Our most recent experience was with the Everglades Safari Park, and it was fantastic. We saw plenty of gators and tons of fascinating birds. You can also head to the Shark Valley section of the park if you want to explore the Everglades on foot and try your luck at some more animal encounters. There's a good chance you'll see some gators here too, but you're pretty much guaranteed some incredible bird sightings. I honestly think the Everglades are home to some of the most beautiful bird species I've ever seen. They come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and colors, and all of them coexist in this one-of-a-kind landscape. I really wouldn't use the word beautiful to describe the park's appearance, but rather unique. If you can appreciate a park with scenery that you just don't see every day, as well as wildlife, which is some of the best of any national park, then you'll have a great time here. Something I got to do at Shark Valley was take a tram tour to the highest point in the park, which is a 65-foot tall spiral observation tower. The views from here looking on over the flat expanse is actually much more impressive than you'd think, and if you get lucky you might see some gators in the pond below. An hour 15 minutes away in the southern part of the park, the Royal Palm area will allow for some more unique opportunities to experience the park on foot. The Anhinga Trail was my favorite trail in the park because of how many different animals there were, but the Gumbo Limbo Trail was also great because of its Gumbo Limbo trees that create an atmosphere more similar to that of Hawaii. I think if you're looking for the most cost-effective park to visit in Florida, Everglades National Park is certainly your best bet. An airboat tour only cost us about $45 a person, less if you have a parks pass, and the tram tour was like $30 a person. It's also worth mentioning that this is the only national park in Florida that does require a fee to enter on top of all these additional experiences. It'll cost you $30 a vehicle valid for 7 days, or if you have a parks pass, this comes out to $0.00. If you plan on traveling to a variety of national parks across the country, I'd highly recommend spending the money on the $80 National Parks Pass. But with that being said, coming out on top as my favorite national park in Florida is number 1, Dry Tortugas National Park. Of all the parks I've visited so far, Dry Tortugas might have been the most difficult to access. First, you'll have to get all the way to Key West, which will take you roughly 3 hours from the mainland. Then came the unfortunate realization that parking at the ferry terminal to get to the park would cost us $40 a day. I get that this isn't the save the park service, but it's nonetheless frustrating since the ferry ride that comes next is already very expensive. $200 per person for a 2-hour, 15-minute ride there and back. back, though you can get a $15 to $25 discount if you have a National Parks Pass. It begins to make a lot of sense why Dry Tortugas is one of the least visited national parks in America once you get a sense of how expensive and remote it is to visit. But once you make it, all of your efforts will be rewarded. Located at the southernmost point of the Keys, as well as the aforementioned Florida Reef System, Garden Key, which is the main island making up the park, will appear. Most of it is occupied by Fort Jefferson, which is this incredible structure that was built here since the Dry Tortugas are in a very strategic part of the Gulf of Mexico. If you want to learn why, I have a whole video dedicated to Dry Tortugas National Park in which I go more in depth. When Congress approved funding for this thing, they set out to create the largest and most technologically advanced fort the world had ever seen for the sake of defense. Though it was never attacked, Fort Jefferson is a brilliant and undeniable symbol that the United States wanted to be left alone. The open windows and unobstructed views you can get from the top of the fort look out over pristine Caribbean water, which was by far the most turquoise I'd ever seen. As someone who has never been to a Caribbean island before, I was in disbelief over the color of these waters. And then you have the option to snorkel here, and that to me was one of the best experiences I've ever had in a national park. The sheer amount of fish was unfathomable, and the coral was just gorgeous. The combination of a lack of crowds, fascinating history, incredible views, and the best snorkeling I've ever done make Dry Tortugas National Park a one-of-a-kind destination, and that's why it's my favorite national park in the state of Florida. If you've had the chance to visit all three though, let me know what your favorite park is, or if you haven't, which is on your to-do list. I look forward to hearing about it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave it a like and subscribe to Travel Dash for more content like this in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.